Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else listening, welcome back to Commissions Open Season 2. Character design for the set by Doida Flower on Twitter. Promotional art by Andromeda_Snow on Twitter. Icon created by Shy Starfall. Commissions Open logo created by Melodic Scavenger. And tonight's guest, the former commentary king of the Paladins Pro Circuit, and the man I've gotten to sit side by side with in the casting booth, it's Phon the Legend. And here's your host, Doc Conrad. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Commissions Open, an interview podcast all about art in the digital age. Here you can hear the processes, stories, and lives of talented artists, voice actors, video creators, editors, musicians, and many other talented creators in the era of online work. I am your host, Doc Conrad, and today I have a good buddy of mine who I've known through the league circuit of commentary, which I was a little bit of an amateur in, and he's clearly been more experienced in this regard. Phon, aka Phon the Legend, how you doing, man?
Hey, dude, I'm doing okay. Quarantine, I feel like it's getting to all of us, but at the same time, I'm doing pretty decent. I'm doing
That's
all right.
good. Yeah, that's good to hear. I know things have been strange lately, and
hmm
depending on when this episode releases, we're either going to still be in it or not anymore. So either way, it's a good look into like how things have been going.
hmm
But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself in a general sense to everybody going ahead and listening? Like, what is it that you how would you go ahead and summarize the work that you do?
Hi, I'm Stefan, and that's my full name. You can call me Fawn. For those of you that know me, or people that are just being introduced to me, you can just call me Fawn. It's completely okay to be able to do that. But at the same time, I'm an esports commentary and show host. I do it for a variety of different games. I bounce in between games here or there, but the one it is I was most known for was Paladins, as I've done it for, as of now, I've done it for about a little bit over a year, if not almost reaching half a year at this point for hi-rez Studios. I've done production work for them as well, and still currently doing production work for them. Bouncing between the commentary and production side is can be a little bit challenging, but it is what I do. That is for the most part most of what it is that I do. I've done different games, like Conrad said before. I have done League of Legends, and I did it for the subreddit before r/League of Legends Discord. And when I had got done doing that, I started branching out into other games. Recently, I've been doing Valorant. I just got done with the league tournament yesterday. For Bloody Gaming, or the big league specifically is their league circuit. So I've been doing a lot. I've been bouncing around. It's to provide entertainment and make it interesting for those who are watching at home. Any sort of broadcast it is that any sort of broadcast for any game it is you might be interested in watching.
And you said you started at first with League of Legends. Is that correct, or did you start with any other games?
I started with League of Legends first, but actually no, that's actually not true. I started a little bit before that. Before I met you, and we did the League of Legends commentary. I actually started with I actually had done the Smash Brothers. I had done a lot of fighting games. And I did those around my college, which was the Hispanic College of Art and Design, the place it was I graduated from about last year. And in that same line of sight, I ended up meeting all the hi-rez people because of the event it was that we were coming down into Atlanta. I was in Savannah at the time, so we drove 4 hours, came down there with the varsity team for Smash, and as they go around from place to place and compete. And when I made it down there, I ended up meeting the hi-rez people. I had already been in the interview process with them before, so Smash was the first thing it was I started commentating, and some other fighting games here and there, like Dragon Ball Fighters and so on and so forth.
And that started around what time? Was that like early 2019 or late 2018?
I would say like about late 2018, yeah, to early about late 2018, around early 2019, about that time frame.
Mm,
So around like I would say like about like November, December wise of 2018 to early 2019.
mm. And you've pretty much like gone in from there and like nearly gone all in. Is that correct, or
No,
or have
yeah.
you been doing you've been like so you've mostly been doing like some things involved with like on the free side from like you're working on different games for like for instance like for the subreddit tournament that was more just for like getting our practice in and wanting to go ahead and get things started from there. And you were like an excellent you were an excellent duo when we did it.
I must say that was my first time ever doing any sort of proper commentary, and I
Mm,
was lucky to be chosen. And I'm guessing like you had known a little bit about the subreddit tournament beforehand, or
mhm.
were you also like picked from a hat?
I knew about the subreddit tournament beforehand. At that time, when we had done the commentary, I had about 2 years previously, I had been the coach for the League of Legends varsity team, and I'd also played collegiately for SCAD before the department had even formed. And there was a time period where there were some members of the previous team, even before me, had made like Reddit posts and stuff like that. Weren't the best Reddit posts, but they were Reddit posts. Just going over some stuff, whatever the case was with SCAD. You can look it up. I'm sure you can still find it.
Hmm.
But that was before my time. When I was there, though, I had had experience in competitive league for the university and had already coached the members it was that I used to formally play with. So I had gotten about at least like most of the knowledge, more so than at the time you would expect a silver or gold player to have, right? So
Hmm.
I mean, like it was. I had known about the subreddit beforehand, and as well as the tournament.
Hmm. And from there you further develop your skills and like doing stuff involved with like smash tournaments, but you've mostly had like you not one you have a really cool voice, so it probably helped out quite a bit.
Thank
And
you. Yes.
you and I both heard that too throughout like high school, right? Like, oh, you should
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
radio. Yeah.
Yeah, see, it was so funny that you actually bring that up because of the fact that never in my life had I thought would be a commentator. Never.
Hmm.
I never expected that at all. And the funniest part about that was that so many people told me exactly what it was you just said. You have such a nice voice. You sound so nice, so mature. I really, really like listening to you talk, et cetera, et cetera. And I never really thought about it because I didn't think that there was really like a sort of avenue for that. But
Hmm.
growing up, I grew up in a Christian in a private Christian school. And so video games weren't really talked about as much. I was really like the video game kid, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was the only one it was whose parents realized that there was something to be had with video games, and they knew it was going far because they thought it was just a phase I was going to grow out of. But eventually, they were like, "Oh, this like he's serious. Like he really really plays a lot of this stuff." And they asked me, "Have you ever thought about making games or anything like that before?" I had no idea when I was younger that you could even do that. I just thought they came out of the ether or wherever it was that
Hmm.
they had been coming from, right? So of course, I wanted to move more so into that, but the school had a different opinion on that. They didn't really think that there was anything it was I could do with that. They
Hmm.
thought that my video games, from a religious standpoint, were corrupting me, and that they were, from a religious
Oh,
standpoint,
wow.
it was really perceiving it from a religious standpoint. They were assuming that it would cause me to do different things or just be not a good kid. I was always a good kid growing up, but my love for video games and the love it was that I had for them, I never really thought that. My parents never really thought that, but they at the time they didn't really see different or anything like that. And when I say at the time they didn't see different, I mean in the sense that they didn't really know that that's what was happening at the school. They
Mm.
thought they had known that there was obviously a Christian school. They wanted me to be in a good school, surrounded by good people, but all
Yeah.
it came out to be was that they were just a bunch of assholes, right? At least some of them were, in the most case. So what ended up
Mhm.
happening was that I went to that school for a very very long time, but a lot of it was saying that a lot of it was like was really really rough for me. I was very very harshly bullied a lot of the time.
Mhm.
A lot of people thought that my love for video games wasn't going to go anywhere, but they haven't seen the tournaments it was that I had saw whenever it was uploaded on YouTube at the library, right? They hadn't seen the fact that I had saw all these people gathering from all over the globe with fighting games, with all of these different sort of video games, these people talking and communicating. They didn't see that sense of community. No one had
Mhm.
really ever gone that far before in that school growing up. So there was a lot of misconceptions and misinterpretations about me. They knew I was a good kid, but they thought that that was one of my flaws, and that was something. It was that was something that that could harm me in the future.
Mhm.
But where I'm looking at now, I had always wanted, like, not where I am now and where I had thought I was going to be back then, were two totally different places. I still wanted to grow up and be a video game designer, but there was only one time, because like I said, I was a good kid. There was only one time where I physically remember getting very, very angry, and I had an argument with a teacher about it when I was there. Was because they were saying that video games were corrupting my brain. They were making me think all of these weird thoughts, et cetera, which I found out when I grew up was just my depression. I ended up being very suicidal when I was younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of a lot of the stuff it was I was going through and with the emotions and everything. So so there was a lot of times where they thought it was due to the video games and everything like that. And I remember telling them exclusively, at least my teacher at the time, that that just because I love something doesn't mean that I'm on a corrupted path. I'm not straight away from that. That's not how things work when I like something like that. I didn't get in trouble for it, but I guess it just shocked the teacher because I had never been one to talk back. It was always a yes sir, no sir mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Yes ma'am, no ma'am mentality. But it was I was always so frustrated thinking about that sort of thing and going through that depression growing up at like the age of like 8 was something it was that was super hard for me to sort of get a grasp on. And despite going through all of that stuff, I still believe the thing it is that I have today is not only a blessing, but just the fact that it's video games bringing people together, man. Like I've seen
Mm-hmm.
doing the things it is I've done now, talk to the amount of people I've talked to, seeing the amount of conventions and things it is that I've done has been eye opening. And
Yeah.
then for people to be able to to be able to move on from where I was told as a kid that this wouldn't amount to anything. There's nothing for you here. And then growing up and then immediately moving into the point to where I've had people stop me at DreamHack last year in the hotel or around the place for Paladin. Something it was I didn't think was that at first didn't think was going to be that as not as big as Smite, and everybody knew that. But I had people stopping me, being like, "You were amazing. Like you've I've had people tell me you've changed my life. You've made me." You've really made me love, video games and everything like that. I don't know what was happening up on screen, but you made it interesting to watch. You really pulled me in, and you really inspired me to do XYZ. And I
Mm-hmm.
had never thought in my life that people would tell me that randomly, who I didn't know, complete strangers,
Mm-hmm.
like stopping me, asking me for pictures and such, because I had been on hi-rez's broadcast for so long. It had just really like opened my eyes to a lot of things, and obviously it was a good path to go down because I'm still doing it today. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that.
Mhm,
I can relate to you on a small portion of like going through school, and especially that of a very like Christian school, and like
mhm,
dealing with those sort of same similarities of like getting bullied for the things that you enjoy. And
mhm,
it's not even like things were of course different, but I can relate to you on that like small front. But what's like
mhm,
amazing is like you've been able to go ahead and find not only a sense of community through the video games in which you play, and get to see that and get to see that now like fully realize that you've had a powerful impact on people's lives who have enjoyed your work. Like that is amazing to go ahead and hear, and
mhm,
I'm glad to hear it because you deserve it. Like you clearly leave a lasting impact on a ton of different people.
mhm,
And from like my short time of me like talking with you, like I thought of like when I thought of creative individuals, and I thought of like people whose like stories need to be told, I thought of my buddy Phon, because like you were just like a great person to go ahead and like you were great to go ahead and like talk to and be with. So like in person, not only is you're like in person, quote unquote, but like we are on Discord and we talk.
right,
Like
right, right.
that sort of thing is like it's like you're like a really cool guy to go ahead and get to know. And I think that there's just like a lot that you're able to go ahead and bring forth, give a good positive sort of energy throughout. And that's something that I believe that was something your teachers didn't think was going to happen through this sort of thing, and I'm glad
Right.
that you proved them wrong, and they deserve to be proven wrong, because this has been like a great sort of thing, not only for you but for like everybody who's watched you and seen you work.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
Right. I mean, I completely agree with what it is that you're saying. I mean, I never like I'm not really the type to get emotional in public or anything like that. But DreamHack last year was definitely a life changing event for me to be able to go up on stage and commentate in front of all of these people about Paladins. Even though there weren't that many people watching, there were still a lot of people watching online because Paladins audience, surprisingly enough, is not all in North America. It's actually overseas, over Europe, over in Brazil. So there are a lot of more people watching online than there were in person. But the point to make here is that it's just an I'm glad I can be an inspiration for people who want to go down this path. It can be stressful. It can be really hard. It can be rough. But at the same time, it's something it is that when you really care about something, you keep attacking as hard as it is that you possibly can.
Mhm.
And that's something that's always been super interesting to me, is just being able to provide that, like having people saying that, like all of those views and everything it was that people were getting. So we had like over 40,000 like on Twitch, and we had a lot of people watching in the audience, even though it wasn't as much as Smite was, still quite a few people. It was just crazy to hear people like co- come up to me individually or say different stuff, like you saved paladins. Like I'm like, that's huge to be able to somebody to be able to tell me that. I don't believe it,
Mhm.
but that's the like that, and I refuse to, because I would never think of myself in that sort of high of a threshold, right? To be able to say I saved an entire game just based off of that. Like I've had at least one or two people tell me that, but those stuck out so prevalently to me that that was like, wow, I really did have an impact on what it was I was doing, and to keep pursuing the dreams it is that you have, even if it seems like it might not go anywhere, or if people tell you that it won't go anywhere, in
Mhm.
the long run.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear that, mostly because
Mhm.
like this has been like some like I said, Paladins and like hi-rez studios for the most part, to like the to like as somebody who's a big fan of like League of Legends, it's mostly been slept
Mhm.
on by like a big portion of the community. So to hear that
Mhm.
you're such a core part of that community is amazing to hear, because it's something that I wasn't even fully aware of, and I think a lot of
Mhm.
people need to go ahead and know about that. You do not only commentary for Paladins, but you've done production on both Smite and
Mhm.
Paladins. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and talk a bit about the behind the scenes sort of like narrative between like you working eventually with hi-rez and how you got to that point where you are like working in production and also doing like
Mhm.
commentary and everything. Like I want to hear more about that.
Okay, so my journey like into higher ed and how I've been able to bounce around in the positions it is that I have had, right? Like that's what you
Hmm.
mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, that's perfect to mention, because I could talk about one of the other things it was that I didn't really get a chance to talk about up on a few minutes ago, is the fact that I was also able to work on game design. Paladins brought me on for like a very brief time with the other commentators and casters to be able to try and work for Paladins season 3 when that big update came out. So we helped balance and do a lot of stuff, and they wanted the casters' opinions because of the fact that the opinions and tests from the casters, because we see the pro player every day, right? I was working 5 days a week talking for hours, right? So that's why they ended up bringing me on for that. But more so into the backstory of how I got into it. It was a career fair day, and it was so funny because everything's just sort of piled up on top of each other. And I didn't want to go to career fair because of the fact that I couldn't print off my resume, and I couldn't
Hmm.
print off a few other things, my business cards, whatever it was that I wanted. But I have good friends and people it is that have believed in me and know what it is that I do. And I wore my esports shirt with with a suit and everything on, and we shared a tablet. I shared a tablet with three of my friends, that I could pull up my resume and everything on. They let me do that, and because of that, I ended up walking up to hi-rez booth where so many people were at. But when I walked up, they saw the shirt and they went, "You do esports stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, actually." And so we started talking. Talked to Scarlett Dangerfield, who was PR at the time, head of PR, who I found out was head of PR, and I was talking to her, just having a conversation, et cetera, et cetera. And I was showing her the documentary in college I was working on about esports and getting everybody's opinions and just talking about what it is that they've done. Because I was making a documentary, and I think I still have a copy of that, where I was interviewing the coach, the director of the department. Even though I helped build up the department, obviously I couldn't work there. I was still a student, right? So
Hmm.
there's no work study for that. We are overseeing an entire department. They need people with credentials. So because of that, I talked to the coach, the director, some of the officers, like some of my friends, made a documentary on, it, and I showed them the draft for it, and it was just they said, "Wow, this is really amazing, and you really have a passion for it. What's your name? Can I have a business card? Can you send it to me? Email me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera."
Hmm.
Send it to them. Send it to Scarlett from PR, and I didn't hear anything back for like about 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Second week that happened, I was like, "Well, I guess that was just it. I don't really know what else it is that it is I can do," because at that point it was my senior year. I was scared because I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea. I had gone to a school for 4 years, getting a degree in something that I realized was not something I wanted to do, but I couldn't stop because I was already 3 years in.
Hmm.
Um, at that last year, everything just started coming together, and I'll get to how that ended up happening because of the fact that the esports department started when when I was doing when I was in a class, programming class, and the chair of game design was actually the professor, and they asked about if anybody knew anything about esports, and of course I raised my hand, the only person in there that understood what that even meant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we started talking. I worked with her. We got the department started, which is why I had the shirt and the credentials and everything before I got to hi-rez. Talked to hi-rez, like I said, gave them all my stuff, sent it through email, didn't get a message back. 2 weeks later, I'm thinking, man, I got to start looking elsewhere. I don't know what else to do. They were the only people it was that really like gave me a shot. Everyone else was like, oh, this is cool with the esports stuff, but nothing else really that they had for me. When I was talking to them, and just talking everything over, and I was going over in my head about how I was like, well, what do I do? How am I supposed to find another job? I'm like stressing out, don't know what else to do. I get an email 2 weeks later from some from hires asking me for an interview. That interview spiraled into 5 other interviews actually, where I talked to a whole bunch of people. I talked to the boss of Skillshot at the time, who was Nabil, who brought me on. He was the final decision. Did a lot of stuff with him, talked to them. Another couple weeks go by. They haven't heard anything about being hired. They message me. They go, hey, do you want to work MomoCon? And I said, absolutely. I said, do I have to pay for a badge or anything? They said, nope, we're paying for all the food, the hotel, and your badges. And it'll be VIP badges. And I said, well, absolutely. And it was that week was the same week I was about to graduate, and I had no idea that all of that was going to happen. When I went and did my thing, they hired me the day after I graduated for contract work to do Paladins. I started that a couple days later, and after that, everything just kept lining up and lining up. That's when I started doing Paladins. I met Pretty Hair. I met Nick. I met Gormizer. I met William. I met Dolson, who's just Dave. I met a lot of them, a lot of good friends of mine. Kresnik, who used to be a former Overwatch player for Selfless, really good tank player, amazing person, really knowledgeable on everything, is my co-caster that I still that we still do shows with. I still do shows with today. So it just ends up being overall a very, very amazing experience. And that's really how I got into it. It was just going out on the limb. I didn't have anything. I didn't have anything to show at Career Fair except for a documentary and a documentary on a tablet that I was sharing with my friends, and a copy of the resume I had sent myself. That was it. I didn't have anything else, and I really was debating going home. I really was like, I just felt so sad and so defeated because they couldn't print it off, and I was like, well, what do I do? And I get there, and everything just falls perfectly into place. Like that's how I got into it. Was off of one leap of faith, and believing that this I might as well go for it, might go somewhere. I was talking to my friends, like, I don't know, like I should go home, et cetera, et cetera. But they were like, no, you should stay. They were like, you should really stay and just try anyway. We'll share the tablet, but just be sure you do it, because of the fact that you never know what could happen. And they told me that, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I will stay. And because of that, because of them convincing me, because of the fact that I had surrounded myself with people that really cared about me, I was able to do all of that. And now they're off working in other spots too, for Naughty Dog and other places. So
so I want to go ahead and like bring it just back just a little bit, because the reason why hi-rez was there wasn't exactly for your position. Is that correct? They were looking for game designers. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes, they weren't looking for anybody like me. No.
Yeah, and I think that because of that, you stood out so much that really like helped elevated you like even further, because you're so passionate about these games that you've talked about, and you're so like into these sort of things, and you saw it from the background for your production wise of you creating that sort of documentary. It really gave you that, I'm guessing, that upper edge within. And
right,
yeah. I don't want to go ahead and like harp on too much in case there's like NDA stuff or whatnot, but I'd love for you to go ahead and continue talking about like your experience working at hi-rez and like working with the team at Paladins and Smite and everything like that.
It's been great. There's nothing it is that I could think of that I would talk about that would even be under NDA, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go about it. I really do love the Paladins guys. I've talked to the Smite guys very, very briefly, but I love the Paladins because those are like my friends. Those are the ones I work with on the game design aspect of things. Those are the ones I worked out with all the loadouts and things. And of course, me and Kresnik were in charge of that because they wanted us to participate in that, and keep us close, if anything, because we were the only two contractors. Everybody else was full time. So they wanted to make sure that we were there. Working with them has been great. Hi-rez can sometimes get a lot of flack for some of the decisions it is that they make, but at the same time, the decisions are not made by one person. Not all the time. Sometimes it can be, sometimes it can't be. Uh, but and I say that to mention that I always feel like there's a sense of team there. I feel like there's a sense of community. At some
Mm-hmm.
point, it's a corporation. At the end of the day, some decisions are made by one person. Sometimes they screw things over, right? That's just how corporations work, right? That's how we're
Mm-hmm.
working when you're in a business. Sometimes people make mistakes, and that happens. But at the same time, I will say that I've really, really enjoyed working there. I love the people it is that I've been working with. They brought me back on production because of the fact that one of their statements for why they brought me back was because they were like, "You're literally one of the boys at this point. You
Mm-hmm.
could do. We'll put you where we think you can do well at. We don't have any other spots open for specific stuff, but we can get you in with production." And I went, "Okay, sure." And so that's when I started doing production work for them, about a few months ago. But because of all the quarantine stuff, I haven't really been doing production. I've been back on, doing a lot more commentating. And even when I was doing production, helping out with the cameras, making sure things were always updated, the clients were there, uh, the um, the dev update shows were ready, stuff like that. When I was doing things like that, I was doing production, I was still doing commentary on the side. So I never stopped doing what it was that I knew I loved to do. But working with a group of people it is that I love working with every day is something it is that you can't really ask for anything better, honestly.
This section of the middle bit is in honor of the late mother of Phon. Phon, I want to let you know that I love you, buddy, and I hope that you're doing well this holiday season. I know things aren't exactly the same, but I want to go ahead and reach out and give my ever-loving support to you and the rest of your family during these trying times and things that have been going on in the world. You deserve a lot, especially right now. So, I want to go ahead and say thank you for being there for me and my, well, humble beginnings of starting work in commentary and getting to where I am today, making a podcast and doing voice acting work and everything that I do. I don't think I could have done it exactly the same way without you. So, you mean a lot to me, and I hope that these words mean a lot to you. And as for you, Miss Hardaway, I hope you're doing well up there, and I know that your son is doing amazing. He always is. With all that being said, let's move forward to the middle bit. Hey everybody, welcome back to the middle bit. I'm your host, Doc Conrad, and let's get things started, shall we? If you didn't know from the last episode, I have been streaming live on Twitch every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 10 p.m. EST, and Saturdays at a random point in time. If you are listening to this right now, in fact, later on today, I will be doing a stream. Not entirely sure what it's going to be on Saturday, but it's going to be a good one. I know that for certain. Have a lot of fun with those all the time. Having fun playing Minecraft, Among Us, all those sort of games. It's been quite a bit of fun playing games with fans and friends, people that I know, past guests of the podcast, and all that. So, if you want to go ahead and catch me live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 10 p.m. EST, that is twitch.tv/Dr. Conrad. Again, that is twitch.tv/Dr. Conrad. Also, I've been seeing a lot of support coming from some big fans of the podcast over the past few days, and it's been great to go ahead and see. I want to go ahead and get the ball rolling again, so if you want to go ahead and suggest this podcast to anyone that you think might enjoy it, please go ahead and do so. I'd love to go ahead and check it out, and if you're a fan of the show, feel free to go ahead and @ me on Twitter at CommsOpenPodcast. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at CommsOpenPodcast, and you can go ahead and check me out there. Also, if you happen to be someone who's watching the podcast on YouTube, be sure to hit subscribe and hit the like button. It would really help me out quite a bit. And if you're listening on whatever app you use, I would love it if you would go ahead and follow the podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcast, anything you want to go ahead and do, just go ahead and follow me there. That'd be amazing. And, yep. Alright, that looks like it's gonna be it for the middle bit. You guys enjoy the rest of the interview. Take care. Alright, bye.
That definitely makes sense. Yeah, you've worked hard to go ahead and get to that point, and you deserve to go ahead and feel like you're a part of a great team that's like fully involved. And I'm glad that's the case, because like you've been like, I feel like I know you a lot better now, because when I first met you, of course, there was the sense of like, oh, there's this cool dude who is very knowledgeable about like how to properly like enunciate and get everything right. And I
Mhm.
learned some things from you from a technical standpoint when I first talked with you, involved with doing like commentary. But now I've seen that like you've really applied yourself and like gone all in on this regard, and working with hi-rez, and working with like the team, and like in terms of like balancing, like there's a lot of things that people don't realize, like how fully invested like some commentators can be involved with like the game, because they need to be knowledgeable of the game in order to like properly tell like discuss things involved with like decisions that players make, or like things that are you can claim to be like actually wrong, like within the
Right.
what the people what the like the players are doing, or what they're doing correctly. Like, those sort of things, and you have to be knowledgeable about those things. So I don't think like a lot of people quite understand like that's like how in depth it has to be. But why don't you go ahead and talk about like the work that you've done. You've talked at length about the stuff you've done involved with hi-rez. But I
Mhm.
want to go ahead and take like a small step back to to your earliest days of you doing like the first time you discovered like doing commentary in general. Like
Oh,
you did some early stuff involved with like fighting games and Smash. And was that for like a small like group of was that for like a small group of friends? Was it for like a Twitch stream? Like what was that along the lines? Like what was that?
it was for Revival, actually, which was a tournament down in Florida that I went to. I have a lot of my Savannah friends who have moved out of Georgia and gone to other places, but they're my fighting game homies, right? Like I talk to them almost every day, and if I can't talk to them, I'll go like a long time without talking to them. But whenever I come back, of course, they always involve me in the conversation. It was because of them that I went down to Florida and I got my first commentary experience there, and I actually thought I wasn't good at commentary. When I had tried it for Dragon Ball Fighters, because it was a launch day tournament, and so when I went down there, I placed top three. Uh, so I did really, really well in that tournament and beat a lot of good players, beat some of Florida's best players on that first day. And it was really, really fun to be able to do that. I got a lot of people talking to me and got a lot of people interested in what it was I was doing. So I wanted to try commentary. Because of that, I thought I wasn't good at first. That first little tournament it was that I did, I thought I wasn't good because of the fact that I had it was just because of the fact that I had my partner wasn't really the best. He was I don't even remember his name. I don't know what it is that he's doing now. But I knew I had to play off of other people, et cetera, et cetera. And so I tried the best what I could do with that. And it just didn't go. It didn't sound good to me. I didn't feel good. He was taking a lot of like the flow that was happening, and he
Hmm.
sort of just kept talking. And like there would be times where like he would throw it to me, et cetera, et cetera. But that's if before the game was starting. But at the same time, he just kept going, and I was like, I felt hard. If it felt hard to be able to do that with him because of how he was moving, but we just didn't have a good flow, which is what I know now. We just didn't have a good flow. That was the only deal. I could match him now. I'm pretty sure. He was known in the community. I don't remember what his name was. I know he was known around Florida, but I don't really remember what his name was. That was the first time I really tried commentary. I really thought I was bad at it, and I had never considered it. The only time I thought that I was good was before the league tournament. But before the tournament happened, when I was doing that commentary, what ended up happening was that because they wanted to try and do some of their stream management stuff, the school wanted some commentators, and they were like, "Well, we need a commentator at least for league." Um, Overwatch, everybody wants to do Overwatch, so I was like, "Okay, cool, I'll do league." Um, and I did League of Legends, and everyone enjoyed it so much that my job already was to be a community manager, supposed to be the ambassador, and I was helping out with a lot of other stuff.
Hmm.
And that's what they were paying me for. They added me commentating as a part of my pay description because they were like, "You did really, really well, and it was funny. It was entertaining. We all loved it. Well, I will always get you up there for League of Legends." And it was only me commentating League of Legends, so I had to do the analytics and I had to do play by play. So that's what I knew really, really well.
Hmm.
And so that and the Dragon Ball Fighters tournament were definitely my first beginning steps to be to be a tournament player, if anything. I'm not a tournament player, but to be a commentator, if anything. I didn't. If I would have went back and listened to it now, I would hate it because I know what it is that I would have done wrong
Hmm.
immediately. I feel like I've grown so much in terms of commentary because it is hard, and every single time it is I've talked to people that want to do commentary and they do it, they were like, "That was harder than I thought." And I'm like, "Yeah," because it actually takes a lot of work to be able to do so. Talk for hours at times, and if I wasn't used to doing commentary by myself for League for however hour long game or whatever the case was, it would be rough.
Hmm.
I would it would have been a lot harder for me to be able to do that. But everything, I mean, just everything was the way how it went. Like it was just good. It was a blessing, and I truly
Hmm.
believe that. Like everything just sort of lined itself up from those first two times I commentated to now.
Yeah. It's actually kind of interesting because like I never so the time in which like before you like I was like your third time that you've like commentated with
Hmm.
I commentated with someone and I was like your it feels sort of like an honor like I'm like the second person you ever commentated with
Yeah,
and now you're
yeah,
like this far ahead like I get in the I don't know I'll go ahead and put that on my bragging rights sort of like thing
yeah.
but you're like you clearly knew how to go ahead and like not only take a lead and take initiative, but you worked. But I like to go ahead and like put myself in the fact that like I like to go ahead and like when I added commentary and was willing to go ahead and take that sort of secondhand seat because you were so knowledgeable about the game because you had done it for so
Hmm.
long that I think it was really willing to go ahead and like be sort of that stepping point between like okay I'm not just talking by myself now I got somebody else to go and work with but I was so new that I was okay with like taking that step back and I think
Right.
that helped like move things along to how you've like gone so that like to the point where you've gone so far where now you're able to go ahead and like commentate very well involved with like a full like casting bench like how many people on the Paladins for the Paladins team like did you like are you currently like commentating with are you doing it like just you and is it you and your like one other person or
Co-caster.
like another set or like what is it.
It's four people. When I was doing it, it was five. It was me. My boss at the pretty time was Pretty Hair, so it was Nick. It was Dave, William, and Kresnik. So I believe that yeah. So me, Nick, Dave, William, Kresnik. Yeah, that's five people that were on the team at the time. Right now, I've commentated with four as Nick has moved on to work on Rogue Company, as everybody knows now because that's public knowledge. So I can say that. He
Hmm.
moved on to do another game and prepare that. He is like I believe the esports director for that game. So he's getting ready to make that a sort of competitive game and helping people out. And it's a really, really fun game if you guys haven't checked it out anyway. But right now I commentate with me, Dolson, Gormizer, and Kresnik, who are each Dave, William, and Bobby. And that's the three it is that I alternate with on the weekends now, Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, you've like you had to go ahead and like change the dynamic from like being from yourself to having like one other person to having like a full set of like four people. I'm guessing
Mhm.
there's like play by play and color
Mhm.
commentary, same as like
Yeah.
in like regular sports, but like how is that transition from going in and working with them? Because I know that they've of course been like great people to go out and work with, but I'm guessing it was like
Absolutely.
difficult to start with.
Absolutely rough. It
Hmm.
was it was bad. And I'm not saying that because I screwed up or whatever it was, but I had come in. Not gonna lie, I came in a little bit arrogant. I never showed off my arrogance. I was never like, oh, I'm coming in here. I'm the stuff. I'm the best. I do this. I do that. I never thought that, but I came in a little bit being like, okay, well, it can't be this hard. I've studied some of the paladin stuff. It can be what it is, right? And they went,
Hmm.
okay, you're going to do, okay, so to start off with, we're going to go ahead and we're going to show you a league match because they knew I did league commentary as well. So they were like, okay, we're going to start show a league match and we'll get how things are going. Um, it was it that was fine. That went well. They gave me some critiques and so forth, and they went, okay, now it's time to do paladins. It's a different game. Let's get ready for this. Now this is somebody, and this is me coming into commentary. Have only done really commentary for League. Has done some for Overwatch because I know what's happening. I understand the game, but for League of Legends, I've been playing for 10 years. So I've been playing since release. I'm 23 now, so I started playing when I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming into a new game that I'm supposed to be commentating about that I'm supposed to have the same knowledge of, or at least catch up to the knowledge of 3 other individuals that have been doing this for years. And I started, and it was awful. It
Mm-hmm.
was like every time it was that I had started saying something, I would hear, because we have headsets on so we can hear production. So they would talk in my ear and be like, "Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do that." And it never felt rude. It was a critique. I never felt like they were being rude, but it made me feel bad because of the fact that, not because of what they were saying and the fact that that what they were saying was wrong or anything like that. I didn't feel upset. It was more so just the fact that I wasn't upset at their advice. I was upset at the fact that I was like, wow, I really thought this was something simple.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was something super simple. I didn't think it was something I could just pick up in an instant. I knew it would be rough because I was nervous coming into the training process because I was like, I don't really know this game like that. I was more so taken aback by, wow, these guys do this so often
Mm-hmm.
and they can do this. And as time went on, I started hearing them do other games. And you wouldn't have been able to know that some of those games they had only played like a little bit. They don't know the knowledge it is that these people on Paladins have had for years, right? It's not their game. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't doing Paladins for years. Some of them had even moved from Smite to do Paladins and just bounce back and forth. But the thing was that when they started doing other games, I started hearing them and realizing these guys are good at what they do. Like they're good. I'm nothing. I already thought that I was nothing coming into it because I was like, these guys are professionals. They're the ones training me. But at the same time, I was like, this is insane. I hadn't really heard anyone do it in the way that they had done it behind the scenes, not in camera, because people in front of the camera that are professional that do commentary for League or other bigger games like an Overwatch League or whatever the case is, they always seem like they know what it is they're doing. But for me to be able to see these guys bounce from game to game, not breaking a sweat, and then coming out doing absolutely crushing it, and then being like, "Man, I was really nervous up there." I would have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I would genuinely have no idea. Working with those guys has always been such an eye opener to me. And I love every single day I work with them. I learned so much from them. Some of them have moved on to do bigger stuff like Smite, and they're still working on Smite commentating and absolutely killing it. And sometimes, not gonna lie, it's not necessarily envious, but I do wish I could have gotten a chance to be able to commentate on Smite and stuff like that. Right? There's some portions of me that catch myself thinking that, and that's just me being honest. Because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, man, I really love MOBAs. I wish I could, go back and commentate another MOBA that would be so sick, et cetera, et cetera. Not necessarily out of envy for their position, but just the fact that, man, I wish I would have been able to do that too. But it is not. I'm not jealous of them at all because what they do is amazing and they're all great. They're so good at what it is they do, and I have such a huge admiration for everyone. I don't know who's going to go back and watch this, but if anyone's going to go back and really watch this, that once I post this link out, once it gets posted officially. But Tom, Ryan, John Finch, Bobby, Nick, all of you guys, Dolson, Gore Miser, all of them. If you guys are listening to this, if any of you are listening to this, Hindu Man, Anatoly, Taco, there's so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really appreciate you all so much for giving somebody a chance like me to be able to have such amazing talent and to be trained by you guys. It really does mean a lot. Like I really have no words to be able to express how grateful I am for the opportunities that were given to me and the perspectives that they are able to allow onto my casting and also on my production work and being able to do so much for it. I really am. I think the world of them. Like having a team like that to be able to critique each other, mess around. We go out, we have drinks, or we go to a hockey game that the company paid for, which actually happened. It's great having a team that is that close knit and people that I can call almost like a family to me that's so important. I love them all so much, especially the people back in production too. They work their butts off as well. They're up before, and as somebody who's done production as well, um, Tyler, Jared, Blake recently just left, but Ray, all of you guys, man, like they are there before the casters get there. So they are there early in the morning, like about 6 in the morning, and they might be there for a while. And then when they're done with that, Dylan, I'm just thinking of more names as they come along.
Mhm.
They work their butts off, and I've been able to work with them as well. And they've taught me so much. I've learned so many tools of the trade. It's really amazing having a close knit team like that that I can really, really depend on. It's really something that means so much to me.
It's good to hear that you've been able to go ahead and like that you have this such a close knit like family almost that has
Hmm.
been able to go ahead and like provide insight to the work that you do, has been able to like you of course had innate talent that you've had, but to be able to go ahead and grow even further than that is what makes good people great. And I
Right.
definitely can tell that you've gone further beyond what you've initially accomplished. And to like everybody who's been a naysayer in the past, I'm so glad they are fully wrong. That you're able to go
Right.
ahead and like get this far. I'm glad to go ahead and know this side of you now. It's so good to go ahead and hear more about this from you, man.
Hmm.
It's so good. I'm proud of you in that. I'm proud of you in that regard. Like sometimes, like of course, there's a case where a lot of people can go ahead and say like, "Hey, I'm proud of you." You might get some of those like DMs on Twitter or like send a message for that, but
Hmm.
it always helps to go and hear that from like somebody. Fawn, I'm absolutely proud of the work that you've done starting from way back when to like now. It's so good to hear that you've like moved forward from that. I'm proud of you
Hmm.
in that regard. I want to go ahead and like bring this a little thing up. It might be a little bit embarrassing, but like I'm proud of your weight loss, man. I as somebody who is
Oh
as,
no, that's not embarrassing at all. Thank you so much. I'm glad
yeah,
that you actually mentioned that. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Sorry,
that's been tough.
the reason why I bring that up is because like I'm a little bit of a heavier set guy myself. I'm around like 360, and the fact that
Right.
you've gone down from like 28 like 280 to 222, 221,
Yeah.
and so excuse me, is like inspiring, man. Like you've done work like not only in your physical health and your mental as well. Like there might be some days where you have to be down, but like you've been in general, like you've been a positive influence on other people. You are a great source of like you're a great source of inspiration for like the fans of of Paladins. You've been a core member behind all these sort of groups, and you've improved on yourself and the work that you've done. It's like amazing to go ahead and hear, and I'm glad that you have a chance to go ahead and like you've gotten a chance to go ahead and share that sort of love for this game and for the work that you do with like everybody who's listening. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I mean, I try and bring as many smiles to people's faces as I possibly can. Honestly, I really really hate seeing people that are down and really have the same sort of perspective on games that I have that have gone through the same things, that have been through the trenches and understand that this is something it is that is continually growing. Esports as a result is still new. It's still unexplored. There's a lot of avenues that haven't really been done yet before. But I definitely think if there's a competitive game it is that you want to try and go for, go for it. Just know it is absolutely hard to find a job like that. And I'm not going to hype myself up at all. Commentary is another hard job to find. It is important that if you do it, you go out and you just do it, because money has to be a thing it is you think about when you pick positions like this. Because esports, once you get into it, it can keep rolling its way forward because you meet so many people. It's a big space that's being occupied by very very little people. The crowd is smaller than the venue is, right? So
Mhm.
there are a lot of people that know each other back to back in esports, and so it's important to know that if you have this sort of perspective, you want to go for esports and do things like that, you gotta start small, but you have to go for it. And I had
Mhm.
to start small too. Casting college community tournaments, right? I was very, very lucky and very blessed to be able to commentate in in a sense of in a sense of also being able to be paid for it when I was in college. So moving from that to the next thing is what's super important here. It's important to make sure that you go for opportunities. You commentate different events like I'm doing right now with different games and building another reel out of it. I already have one reel. I'm building another one out of it to make sure that whenever I want to commentate bigger events, sometimes you got to work for free. Sometimes you have to use certain sometimes you have to use certain avenues of success. Meet friends along the way. Be nice to the people it is that you talk to. Because in esports, it's so small. Nobody likes an asshole. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
does. Especially when everyone cares about what it is they do.
Exactly.
I there's a um NA cameraman, Doug. Doug, all he does is spectate for Smite. But Doug cares so much about his job and is so into the fact that he is a part of something cool that he takes that job so seriously, and he is a team player. He cares about his job. He doesn't, and all he does is spectate. He watches the game. But if you look at his computer, he has like 4 monitors in the back of production, notes everywhere. He cares about what it is that he does, and he will contribute to the team effort. But everyone always uses that position as sort of a way to be like, okay, well, I'm spectating Smite. That means that that's my avenue to be a commentator, right? Like people always do that. But Doug
Mm-hmm.
has never been that type of person because he's still stuck with the job that he loves to do, being a part of something cool, treating the small jobs it is that you have as something bigger because you never know what could end up happening. You got to
Mm-hmm.
care about what it is you do. You got to be a team player, and you got to make sure that still you don't let people take advantage of your talent. You can't do everything for free. So asking for money is not a bad thing either when you do these events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely makes sense, and it definitely makes sense that like you want to go ahead and get paid for these sort of things,
Absolutely, yeah.
eventually, because it's like as a matter of like, it's just a matter of fact that like if you want to continue to do what you love, you have to get some sort of compensation for it eventually.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that you've gotten a chance. I'm glad that like you've gotten a chance to go ahead and like fully go in with that, and I'm glad that like there are people who are so passionate about the things that they do involved in this sort of career, because a lot of
Hmm.
people can go ahead and see like a lot of people can go ahead and see jobs as stepping stones, and like
Right, yeah.
that's not exactly what this sort of this sort of like in this sort of space it really should be. It shouldn't not just be like a case of like stepping stone. That shouldn't be your first thought when you comes to it.
Right,
You can think about it
exactly.
like in a technical sense, like of course there's a business end to everything, but the most
Right,
important thing about it is that there's the passion that gets you the job in the first place and keeps you working hard in it, and then from there you can think about it in that way. So being able to go ahead and like take it from that end, like commentators and to the commentators, to the people who do production side on like a ton of different like video games for smaller games even, like sure
hmm,
you can go ahead and think of it like a stepping stone for your next sort of thing, and you can go ahead and like think about that in like once in like a part of your mind, like keep that in the back of your head. But the main thing everybody has to focus on is that like your main focus is the job at hand and the production at
hmm.
hand, because there would be people who would kill to do what you would do,
Right,
just like in general. And that's more of a message for everyone else. You of course you've taken yours so seriously, and you've like done an amazing job like showing that passion through being through being somebody who's worked in these in this industry. And I'm glad to see that like I know this podcast is mostly about like people involved with like the arts and like
hmm.
a lot of things involved with that, but I just know that like commentary and working on production and through video games and anything involved with that is its own art form, and I'm glad to see that you are a master of your craft.
Mhm. I appreciate that. I don't even think I'm a master of that. I still feel like I have a long way to go
Hmm.
because of just some of these other guys that have been commentating for quite some time, right? So I'm still looking to improve and only go up from here. I mean, I can't imagine how to go down from this point.
No, I definitely don't think you will. I think you're gonna go ahead and keep moving forward throughout this whole thing. um Fawn, is there anything you want to go ahead and summarize up before we go ahead and wrap things up from here? Because we're getting a little bit more towards the end.
Mm. Um, no, nothing it is I really could think of except for the fact that you should just do what it is that you truly believe in. Make sure
Hmm.
that you can monetize it in some way. Everything is not about money. You have to have the passion, be able to back it up, but don't fool yourself into thinking that working however hard it is that you can, even with a passion, should go unpaid for. You should always work super hard, have that passion, but make sure you can at least get some sort of income out of it. That's always a good way to think about certain things, right? I mean, I see lots of memes on Twitter and on different places about the guy it is that's streaming to like 0 people, but he leaves his job to make sure to become a full time streamer, right? Like it's you have to be able to be realistic, excuse me, in certain things. Because even still, I'm speaking about this as from like a contractor standpoint. I don't have a full time position. So I move from game to game and do what it is that I can. While the job itself is cool, at the same time, I would love to have a full-time job or a full-time position as well. So it's important to be able to think about stuff like that. You can love what it is that you do, but in the real world, it doesn't really matter if you
Mm-hmm.
can't really make some sort of living out of it. You have passion on the side, as long as you have something to pay the bills. Of course, do whatever it is that whatever it is you're passionate about. But yeah, just be careful. Don't let people take advantage of your talent, is what it is that I'm trying to say overall. And make sure that you get paid for working as hard as you do. Sometimes you got to work for free, but you still have to be careful about that.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is. Thank you for that advice. Actually,
Mhm.
it's wholly in circular of like not only the work in which you do for like art, which is what which is what this podcast is mostly about,
Right.
but also involved with the work that you do, involved with production and for commentary. A lot of people can
Mhm.
go ahead and say that you can get like a small, like even getting paid like something is always better than doing work
Absolutely.
just for free for like just exposure. The bigger companies won't just go ahead and give you that for exposure. They'll go ahead and give you something that'll be willing to go ahead and pay for like stuff along the way. If that's the most important thing.
Mhm.
Like that's the proper ones. The proper ones will
Yeah, absolutely.
give you that opportunity to go ahead and get paid because they want to go ahead and see you grow and like grow into somebody along the lines of like Phon, because they took
Right.
initially they took a chance and they go ahead and got you on contract, of course, but you're like they paid you because they saw like not only as you do you have talent, but they want to go ahead and grow you even further to become a commentator and work on production. So I'm glad to
Right.
go ahead and see that like you've been able to not only practice you've been able to practice what you preach, and that's always very important for a lot of people.
Mhm. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
You just got to be careful, man. There are a lot of people that'll take advantage of you and just use you for free continuously.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be careful if you love what it is you do, especially artists. I graduated from an art school, right? I know getting paid in exposure. Um, I know the concept of being paid in exposure. I understand that, and that is good sometimes, not all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Exposure doesn't pay your bills. Exposure doesn't get you food. Exposure doesn't do a lot of these things. So be smart. Don't let people take advantage of you, especially if you're an artist. There are a lot of people that try to be artists, but there aren't a lot of people that make it as artists. You
Mm-hmm.
got to be careful with who it is that you trust. Who it is that you trust to take your clients from, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So just be sure that you guys use your own cognitive ability to be able to reason with certain clients and such. You got to be able to make money for something.
Exactly. Exactly. And with that being said, Fawn, with that great piece of advice, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you so much for going ahead and being here. And you can follow Fawn on Twitter at Fawn the Legend, and I'll have the outro spiel. Go ahead and play us out. Thank you so much, man.
Of course.